Hi, so in this section I'm going to demonstrate to you the architecture that we are going to use to implement our SQL query statement on a map reduce. So as you can see here, we have the product table and we have the sales table. And if you remember from our SQL query statement, we need to join the product name and a number with the order quantity and line total based on the product ID in both tables. So both of these tables have these fields here and some other fields that we are not going to use. So the first thing we're going to do to implement our SQL query statement is that we are going to build a product ID key mapper class. And this class is going to get the product ID and set a tag for each product ID to know which table it got it from. So for the product table, so it's gonna set like a product tag. Maybe we're going to assign it to be like a 1. And if it got this ID from the sales table, we're going to assign it to be 0. And the reason we need this is with a reducer, we're going to iterate over each record that we are going to get, and based on that we are going to get either the name or a number or get the order quantity and line total. So after we assign the product ID with a tag for the table it got it from, we're going to compare the product IDs that we got it from each of those tables. So we got a 1, a 2, 3, 4 IDs for products. We're going to compare those IDs, and based on this comparison, we're going to sort and to group each ID to get it in the same reducer. And also we're going to get the hash code for each of those IDs. So the second thing we're going to do is building our product mapper. So the product mapper is for the product table. And from our product mapper, we're going to split the fields in this table based on what you use. Maybe I split it with a space, maybe you have a comma, maybe you have a hash. Whatever you're going to use, just use the regex for it. So the next thing we're going to do is to pick the fields that we are going to process. So after we split the fields, we need the product ID, maybe it's the field number 3 or 4 in the product mapper, or maybe it's 1, and the same thing for the name and a number. We're going to get each of those fields in a variable. So it's going to take the product ID from the product mapper and send it to the product ID key, and it's going to assign it to a sales the product based on the mapper it got it from, and then send the hash code for it. So in this area we're going to get a hash code for the ID and the table tag. Both of them are going to be hashed. So also we have a product name and a product number, which maybe have a product name could be a string and product number could be an integer or a double. But in our sales mapper, they're different. The order quantity and a line total maybe both are double or integer. So we can send the rest of the records, the product name and a product number, to a reducer and send the order quantity and line total to the reducer when both of them have different data types. So what we are going to do is getting a generic record to hold those two fields, the product name and number, and we're going to get the order quantity and line total in another generic record. So we can send to the reducer the product ID and generic record. And then in the reducer we can deassemble both of those generic records and get the data from them. So we're going to get the product name and a number, and we're going to get the sales product record and sales record classes. We're going to assign the product name and product number in a product record class, and as product order quantity and line total and a sales order quantity, so they can be useful when we deassemble them in the reducer class. And after we do that, we're going to put both of them into a generic record. So we're going to put the product name and a number in the product record, and then take that record and get a generic record from it. And also we're going to do the same for the order quantity and line total, but in the sales record class, and get a generic record. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to use the join generic writable class to get a generic record from both of those mappers. And after we got the generic record and the product ID hashed, we're going to send them to our reducer from both tables, and based on the ID and generic records, we're going to iterate over each of those records, and if it's a product, and if it's a hash, and if its hash is a product, it tells us it's a product, it came from a product mapper, we're going to get the name and a number based on our product record class. And if it's a sales table, and if it got sales table tag, we're going to get the order quantity and line total from our sales record class, and do the logic that we are going to use, like the sum of the order quantity and sum of line total, and get the result of our SQL query statement. So hope you guys understood what I just demonstrated, and if you get any question, you can just ask me again and I'll try to demonstrate to you. And throughout our sections that we are going to do, I'm going also to re-demonstrate what I'm doing while I'm planning each of those classes and whatever class that we are going to build. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned, and see you in the next section.